All right, YouTube. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. Talking Auburn football down in Deep South. College football is keen on the plains of Auburn. The battle cry is War Eagle. We're talking about the Deep South's oldest rivalry as Auburn takes on Georgia in an uncharacteristic time of the season. Usually Auburn plays Georgia like right before, well, in between a cupcake team and face Alabama. But this time, as it has been for a couple of years, Auburn is playing Georgia a little bit early in the season. And we got to look at this. You know, Auburn has had some struggles. Auburn has had some quarterback struggles, have been pretty good on the defensive side of the football field, which, could give some optimism coming into this game from the defensive side. But we look at the takeaways from the Texas A&M game. The quarterbacks kind of sort of needed a game like this to where they could really see the speed of the game in the SEC. Peyton Thorne was only 6 of 12 for 44 yards, with Brian Battie as the leading receiver for 23 yards. Auburn had 200 total yards in that game against Texas A&M. You're not going to beat many teams like this, and you're definitely not going to beat Georgia like this. So Auburn is definitely has to figure that out. Auburn didn't turn the ball over against Texas A&M, which is a good thing. You protect the ball on the road, and you continually give your team a chance to win. But, when you get yourself in position on offense to where you're consistently way behind on down and distance, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 12, pretty much anything beyond 3rd and 7 with this Auburn team is going to get you in trouble when you talk about, possibly facing, well, not possibly, but you're going to be facing the best team in the country on paper in the country. These guys have won 2 straight national championships, and they're probably, pushing the envelope to win another. You can't have these type of penalties. And especially when you talk about 3rd and 7 and 8 against up front, I would say that Georgia is one of the best up front in the country. They have some really good skill players, in the interior, to where 3rd and 8, 3rd and anything beyond that will get you in trouble, and you start to become really predictable, and it forces a lot of things. One, it forces your play calling to be a little bit more diverse to where you try to get some guys open, which may or may not happen. And it also puts your offensive line in a position to where they can make some mistakes well because of the pressure that will be put on them. And with the quarterback, one thing that the Auburn quarterbacks have to understand is that, look, with a stellar offensive line, you don't have a lot of time to make decisions. You probably got about 2 to 3, maybe 4 seconds to figure out the trajectory of the play calling from a quarterback standpoint. And, a lot of Auburn fans say, hey, the offensive line sucks. No, they might not. You just have to understand that there's not a lot of time. You talk about the SEC across the board recruits really well on the defensive line to where, I mean, you don't have a lot of time to make decisions. You just don't. You just don't. One of the things that I want to note is Georgia has a trend to where they don't really play particularly well in the first half of the game. Auburn needs to hope that that continues, because they don't play particularly well in the first half. And I think if Auburn has a chance to be competitive in this game, they're going to have to manage this thing to where it's kind of like the Texas A&M game. All that adversity against them, everything that happened, down 6-3 going into halftime. I think that was the best case scenario. But here's what happened. Auburn had a crazy stretch in that third quarter to where Texas A&M scores 14 points. Kind of gets the game out of rhythm for Auburn and then puts them in a position to where there's a lot of crazy urgency. And then you counter that with 10 penalties on Auburn's side of the football. You just can't win in the SEC or in Power 5 football not to just, put the SEC in this superiority complex. You can't win like that. You just can't. 10 penalties. I don't care how they come. You just can't. And Texas A&M had the ball on the plus side of the field for just too many times in this Auburn game. So when you look at the defensive side of the football field for Auburn, extremely sound in the first quarter. Texas A&M had 28 plays for about 106 yards, and only had 2 field goals. The third quarter was costly for Auburn defense to where they allowed a lot of explosive plays, and those trends can't continue for the Tigers if they expect to win games down the stretch. Now, I'm really interested to see how some of the guys come back from injury, defensive wise, for the Tigers, because that kind of cost them down the stretch as well. And one thing that Auburn has to do, excuse me, defensively, is they have to continue their trend of creating turnovers. In every game they've played, they've either had a turnover or they've had a turnover that led to a score. Now, we look at the Georgia team. Georgia's obviously undefeated. They're doing some great things. They're starting to see some things with Carson Beck to where he's able to vertically throw the ball down the field. And one of the guys that you got to look at is, the tight end Brock. He's probably he's going to be a problem for Auburn. He's a problem matchup wise. He's a problem with whether he's playing his natural tight end position or he can make some things happen down the field. It's hard to tackle him. He's going to be the key factor of this game, I think, for the Georgia offense. Now, last thing. I just think if you're an Auburn fan and, there's a new coach, Hugh Freeze, and Auburn has had a trend of new coaches outside of Tommy Tuberville. And we could talk about Gene Chizik, with the national championship in year two. But for the most part, Auburn fans have felt that, a new coach, a new system would be a quick fix. But no, there's no quick fix here. Auburn's in a jam to where you got to get recruiting ramped up really quick because of the changes in the SEC with Oklahoma and Texas coming into the conference. You just got to be patient. The days of the prayer at Jordan Hare, the kick six, the quick fix is over. Auburn has to do their due diligence in building a program that will translate into consistent success for this team. So, with that in mind, it's prediction time. Auburn, we don't want to think that Auburn is in the position that they are in right now, but they are. Georgia is superiorly talented when it comes to their opposition against Auburn. They have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of experience. They've recruited better than prior Hugh Freeze teams. I think they will. I think it will be they haven't gone on the road and faced the crowd of like what Auburn will present, but they will get over that. And I think Carson Beck as a quarterback will not make the mistakes that the Auburn fans would want him to make. And he will stabilize his team to where it will be a stalemate for, maybe a couple of quarters. But then in the second half, Georgia will pull away. Auburn will also be in a position to where they're going to make some more mistakes. At least 7 penalties. That will continue that trend. But Auburn's defense will make it exciting because they will get a takeaway. And hopefully a takeaway for a score. It's prediction time. Deep South's oldest rivalry. One of my favorite games to watch. Georgia will pull this off 35-7 on the Plains. Like this video, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.